I was 28 at the time, just 2 years ago, and the memory still crawls under my skin whenever December returns. Christmas was only a few days away, and I had taken the entire week off from going into the office. My company let us choose when to show up in person, and I'd saved up enough remote days to stay home for the whole week. Honestly, that was the plan from the start. A massive winter storm had been forecast for our town, the kind that swallows roads and silences entire neighborhoods. With the holiday rush and the icy winds already slapping against my windows, I just wanted a calm week, coffee, blankets, soft music, and light work. Remote work at my job was simple. Meet your deadlines. Everything else was up to us. So I shifted into my own schedule: late mornings, slow afternoons, and quiet nights. I didn't know yet that the storm wasn't the only thing that would be visiting me that week. I'd always been a night owl, sleeping in, working late, living quietly while the rest of the world settled down. That day was no different. I didn't even touch my laptop until noon. The first few hours drifted by peacefully. Just me, my coffee, and the muffled hum of the storm building outside. But every 30 minutes or so, the wind grew harsher, slamming against the window beside me like something trying to get in. Fat flakes of snow drifted down, slow at first, then heavier, thicker, almost aggressive. By 3 or 4, the sky had already turned into a suffocating gray. Snow blanketed everything: rooftops, sidewalks, entire cars disappearing under it. I thought about going out to grab dinner, but the roads were drowning, so I stayed in. A few more hours passed. The sun was gone, and the storm had finally shown its teeth, wind howling, windows trembling, lights inside my house flickering from time to time. I kept the window shades open. There was something oddly calming about watching the snow fall while I worked. Hypnotic, even. But then, out of nowhere, a light flickered outside. Not lightning, not a passing car. Something else. Something closer. The moment I saw it, my breath stalled. A thin, trembling beam of light cutting through the white curtain of snow. It moved slowly, searching, almost sweeping across the side of my house. A flashlight. Definitely a flashlight. I leaned back in my chair, watching it for several seconds, while my heart tapped quietly against my ribs. Who on earth would be outside in this kind of storm? The wind alone felt like it could peel skin off. Curiosity won. I stood up and walked toward the window, pressing my palm lightly against the cold glass as I tried to peer down the side of the house. There it was again, the light faint, shaky, weaving between the shadows. But before I could trace it back to the person holding it, it vanished. Not faded, not dimmed, just gone. Swallowed by the dark, or hidden behind something I couldn't see. The snow was falling so thick that everything outside looked like static on a broken TV screen. After a few seconds of straining my eyes, I gave up and stepped back. I told myself it was nothing, maybe a neighbor searching for a lost dog, or someone checking their generator, or some random harmless reason. So I sat back at my desk and forced myself into work mode again, while the storm clawed at the windows and the memory of that flickering light refused to leave the back of my mind. The next couple of hours crawled by in a blur of wind and groaning walls. My house, old, wooden, and always a bit dramatic during storms, kept creaking and sighing. But every so often, something sharper cut through the ambience. A sound that didn't belong. A heavier shift. A faint tap. A muffled scrape. Each time, I froze at my desk and lifted my head, waiting, listening, trying to catch it again, so I could prove to myself it was nothing. But the house stayed perfectly still whenever I stopped typing, almost like it knew I was listening. I kept telling myself I was imagining it, because what else could it be? The idea that it was anything else felt ridiculous. At least until the sound changed. A sudden, violent thud so loud it punched through the storm's howl. Not a creak, not a gust rattling the siding. No, this sounded like something breaking. splitting, shattering. And worst of all, it sounded like it came from inside the house. My stomach clenched as I rose from my desk, slowly, like moving too fast would call attention to me. I stepped into the hallway, holding my breath. Silence. A thick, heavy, unnatural stillness. I crept downstairs. Each step felt louder than the last. But when I reached the bottom, everything looked normal. Too normal. No broken glass, no fallen furniture. Just the wind outside and the quiet hum of the heater, like the house was pretending nothing had happened. The wind outside roared like it was trying to tear the house off its foundation. So maybe that was why everything seemed quiet again. No more thuds, no more scrapes. Just the storm, screaming endlessly. And honestly, I wasn't scared enough to tear apart the whole house looking for something that probably wasn't there. So I turned back toward my office, climbing the stairs in the dim glow of afternoon fading into evening. I was only a few steps from the top when click, a tiny sound. Sharp, final, and then complete darkness. The house didn't just lose power. It felt like it lost life. Every light snapped off. Every shadow vanished into a suffocating black. With the storm outside smothering the windows, there wasn't a single shimmer of moonlight or streetlight left. I held out my hands, nothing. Not even a faint outline. I couldn't see anything. My breath hitched in my throat. The storm must have knocked out a line, or maybe the breaker had tripped. That's what I told myself as I forced my feet to move. Step by step, I felt my way back down the stairs, each wooden plank groaning under my weight, each breath sounding too loud in the dark hallway below. My fingers brushed the wall, searching, guiding, the cold plaster feeling like dead skin under my touch. Somewhere in the house, something shifted. Or maybe it was just the storm. At least, that's what I hoped. The breaker box was in the basement, all the way at the end of the hallway. So I kept one hand sliding along the cold wall, inching forward, blind in the darkness. That's when I heard it. A sound so faint at first that I thought my mind was playing tricks. Something moving. Not the storm, not the wind. Something inside. The muffled shuffling grew clearer, closer, coming from behind the basement door. I froze. My hands stopped on the wall. My breath stalled halfway out of my mouth. And then, the basement door slowly opened by itself. A long, thin whine of hinges slicing through the dark. I stared down the hallway, but all I could see was a solid block of blackness. Yet, I felt something. A presence. Something standing there. Just feet away. Hidden in the dark where even the storm couldn't reach. My heart slammed against my ribs. I took one step back, silent, slow, and slipped into the open bathroom right beside me. I didn't dare close the door. The click of the latch would be too loud, too obvious, too final. So, I stood there in the pitch-black bathroom, holding my breath, the open doorway inches from me, and something unseen moving in the hallway just beyond it. Slow, deliberate. Footsteps began moving down the hallway. Soft, but unmistakably human. They didn't rush. They didn't hesitate. They just walked steady, careful, like they already knew the layout of my house. I pressed myself against the cold bathroom wall, lungs burning as I held my breath. The darkness was so absolute it felt like a weight on my eyes. The footsteps grew louder, closer, until I knew without seeing that whoever it was standing right outside the bathroom, 2 feet away, maybe less, and then they walked past the open doorway, right in front of me, 2 or 3 feet from my body, and I still saw nothing, not even the faintest silhouette, just the sound of slow, dragging steps continuing down the hall. When they reached the stairs, The sound vanished, swallowed by the carpet. Suddenly, the storm outside roared back into focus, slamming against the windows like it was warning me. The house felt hollow, empty, and terrifyingly quiet. For all I knew, the person could have stopped walking and was standing right at the bottom of the stairs, waiting, listening. But if they had gone up, if they weren't here anymore, this was the only chance I'd get. Heart pounding hard enough to make me dizzy. I made my choice. I ran. I slipped out of the bathroom and into the suffocating blackness of the hallway, moving fast but blind. My hands stretched out in front of me, sliding against walls, furniture, anything, because running into something would be the same as screaming, "I'm right here." Somehow, by luck or instinct, I made it to the garage door. My fingers found the handle, then my keys, and I burst through the side door into the freezing storm. The snow was blinding, sharp, biting against my face, but I didn't stop. I sprinted toward my car, threw myself inside, locked the doors, and peeled out of the driveway before my brain could catch up. Only when I was halfway down the street did I activate the SOS system in my car and call the police. My voice shook so badly I could barely speak. When the officers got there, the intruder was gone. But what they did find was worse. They told me the breaker had been switched off intentionally, not by the storm, not by accident. Inside, footprints in the melted snow led from the basement, straight through the hallway, up the stairs, directly into my office, and then my bedroom. No other rooms, no wandering, no searching. They walked with purpose. They walked like someone who knew exactly where I spent my nights and exactly where I worked, like they had memorized the floor plan. And that meant only one thing: the person who broke in, the person who followed me through my home in silence, the person who stood only a few feet from me in total darkness,